Is your life mediocre? Is it okay to be mediocre? What does this word even mean? And how is it impacting the decisions you make about your life? Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Leslie. I am a life coach here in Brisbane, Australia, and I also have a master's degree in applied linguistics, so it's only natural that I sometimes get really hooked on specific words and expressions that tend to come up again and again and again in personal development. And the word mediocre is definitely one of those words. So there are a few different definitions and language-related origins that kind of fit into this word, but to simplify it, I'm going to break it down like this. Mediocre is an adjective with the noun form mediocrity, which comprises the Latin words medius, meaning middle, and ocris, meaning mountain, as well as the suffix ity, referring to a state or condition. Now, I love this. I love the mountain reference because it's so illustrative of how people see achievement, especially nowadays. And one thing that it makes me think of right away is climbing Mount Everest. It used to be seen as like the pinnacle of human achievement. People would strive to get to the top of this mountain just because it's a really tall mountain. But more and more, it's being seen as the kind of thing that rich people do because they want to take amazing selfies. It is what it is. Especially since it's become such a highly commercialized endeavor. And, my brother is a very accomplished mountaineer, and the kinds of climbing that he's done on other mountains all over the world and all of the risks that are involved in that are not necessarily the kinds that people want to take. And tell you what, he's not doing it for the selfies. Another reason I love this mountain connection is that, as some of you know, I am part Peruvian, from Cusco, which is way up in the Andes, and it was the capital of the Inca Empire. And the Incas did plenty of amazing things, but one amazing thing that they did to keep their civilization, thriving was something known as terrace farming. And you can still see evidence of this, if you travel to Peru. It's like you look up at some of the mountains and it's like these, how can I describe it? It's like these massive steps kind of carved into the sides of the mountains. That's what it looks like. I'm sure there's a much more agricultural, scientific way of explaining this, but one of the things that these terraces, one purpose that they served is that it allowed the Incas to grow different kinds of, vegetation in a really harsh climate. And what it actually did was create these little microclimates on each of these steps. So that's such a beautiful way of illustrating how sometimes it's not what's at the top of the mountain that is going to lead to your success, your fulfillment. You need those steps in between, depending on what it is you're trying to grow and in what kind of environment you're trying to grow it in. Now, this is what kept people alive. Now, you may be one of these people who treats mediocrity like a thing that needs to be avoided at all costs. So maybe you're constantly striving for something greater. It could be climbing the corporate ladder or engaging in some other pursuit of some high-level achievement. And if the steps necessary to reach that point genuinely excite you and fulfill you and make you feel really good about your life, then that's great. But if the pursuit of success or the top of the mountain for the top of the mountain's sake is all that's driving you, and if it is harming some other part of your life, for example, you're gunning for that corner office, but your personal relationships are suffering, then it may be time to really reconsider what your relationship with this idea of mediocrity is. Now, one clear example of how the fear of mediocrity is sometimes used as a weapon is in advertising. It's an industry that has largely been built on this idea that what people want is to be extraordinary. And brands need to kind of tap into this fear and, in some cases, dictate what your aspirations are or what they should be, because that makes it so much easier to kind of package it all together very conveniently and then sell things to you. And that also makes it easier for you to fall into this trap of working for a paycheck that's going to get you the money, that's going to buy you the things that are going to place you at the top of this mountain peak that everyone is supposedly trying to reach. You may be in a position where things really aren't going your way, and what you really want is what some people consider quite a simple life, A stable job that keeps you financially secure, that's not something to sneeze at. A reasonably pleasant partner or partners, as the case may be, that you can come home to after a long day at work, maybe a child or two. And for some people, this is enough. This is what everything else they can kind of build everything else around that. And that there is beauty in that as well. The truth of the matter is this, okay? You are allowed to love your life in whatever form it takes. But truly loving your life in all of its extraordinariness or all of its, simplicity isn't the same as resigning to a life that you just kind of tolerate, that you actually find quite boring and not fulfilling. Okay, these are two different things. Okay, they are very different things. You have to be really honest with yourself about what you truly want from your life. For some people it is getting that next promotion and that next promotion and that next promotion. If that's what's going to fulfill you, rock and roll. But if you're doing it just because that seems like what you should be doing and that's kind of the standard issue life that's been packaged and given to you, it's time to do some self-exploration. All of that said, if you have a tendency to fall into the trap of rewarding yourself in some way for making the most minimal effort to pursue something that you really, really want from your life, because, you've had a bit of a go and it didn't quite work out, so, whatever. That's not really something I can support. Changing your mind for a genuine, valid reason? Yeah, okay, but are you being honest with yourself? Again, if you are, that's great. But if you're just letting yourself off the hook constantly, you're not going to be happy with the results. It seems almost impossible nowadays to go through, a single day without someone or something communicating the message that if you are living a mediocre life, there's something wrong with you and you have failed in some way. But my issue with this is that what some people see as mediocre in like a negative way might actually be an ideal scenario for some people. You know, the way people kind of use this word is so different from person to person. And if you're kind of making your decisions based purely on a need to avoid mediocrity without really clearly defining what that looks like for yourself, then you could just be digging yourself into a pretty deep hole. You know, I say enough with the half-assed attempts at accomplishing your goals or getting unstuck from some stagnant situation, and go out there and find the tools and the resources and the people who are going to help you get there. And make sure that that pursuit is connected to your values. And that's one thing I do with my clients. You know, we examine like what your values are, because a lot of people kind of just take these prepackaged ideas of what they should find important and don't really give themselves the time to think about what really matters to them. So to summarize all of this, if you're being bombarded with messages about how you have to be, you know, the best at some random thing just because it seems like a good idea, but what you really want is to, you know, just have a life where, you know, maybe you're not making some massive impact and influencing millions and millions of people to your ways of thinking, that's okay if that is what you want. If what you want is to, you know, spend your weekends just connecting with friends, having picnics, going to parks with your children, no one is allowed to judge you for that. Well, no, people are allowed their own opinions, but whatever, that's just people's opinions. You know, and this idea of like taking a life shift from doing something that other people might think is like really amazing to doing something that some people might think is a bit more mundane or mediocre, you know, it makes me think of my mom. You know, my mom grew up in Peru under some very, very difficult circumstances, you know, and became fluent in 5 languages, became an interpreter for world leaders, you know, had a lot of, you know, was doing a lot of very, what some people would consider quite prestigious work in her early career. And at some point, there was a change. She decided that what she really wanted more than anything was to raise a family. And that is what she did. She took on work in more of a caring profession, you know, counseling children with behavioral concerns, with developmental concerns, and is honestly the most selfless person I've ever known. And there's not a single person that meets my mother that has something negative to say about how she treats people. And she's just so kind of humble about it all. She's making such a massive impact in people's lives just by being a caring, nurturing person. And she doesn't even realize it half the time. You know, she'll reach out to someone and do something extremely selfless. Someone will comment on it, and, you know, she's just like, anyone would have done it. And it's like, well, no, not anyone would have done it. You would have done it. You have done it. And that is the kind of person that humanity needs more of in the world. We don't need another like top charting pop star. You know, it's like, if you're in it for art and beauty and all of that, like, awesome, fine, whatever. But like, some people would have looked at my mom's decision to leave this kind of like more prestigious position as kind of like what are you doing? That's crazy. But no, that's my mom. All right, I'm about to get emotional. Anyway, I could go on and on and on about how the ideas around mediocrity are sort of changing in personal development culture, that there are so many different sources for that. And what I really wanted to focus on in this video is really that word and how it causes a lot of noise for people. So if this is a word that affects you in some way or is inspiring your major life decisions, I want you to stop and think about whether it's having a positive impact or a negative impact. Is it inspiring you to take action towards something, or is it just making you feel like your life isn't good enough for some reason? So yeah, if you want to talk any further about it, get in touch with me and we'll have a chat. All right, you can go to my website, www.lesliebcoaching.com. You can send me an email, hit me up on my socials, and all of that good stuff. I am going to meet my friend downstairs because we were supposed to head off to the cinema like 15 minutes ago. And I'll leave it at that. I will see you next time.